Each and every Monday is $9 Monday at both WagerTalk.com and SportsMemo.com, when all daily picks packages are priced at only $9, including 5% best bets, normally priced at $35. As an added bonus, any picks packages loaded early for Overnight Tuesday or action during the week will also be priced at $9 until midnight on Monday. So make sure to take advantage of getting these $25 and $35 picks for only $9 before the clock strikes 12 and they return to regular price.
What is up, guys? Happy Monday. Welcome back to Wager Talk TV. You're watching Puck Time. As usual, 4 great games to break down here. Best bets at the end. I have my buy and sell segment. And, of course, much more. I want to welcome in Carmine Bianco. Before we jump into anything else, Carm, you are on an unbelievable NHL run. You've had a great read on the, just situational spots, I guess. The big games for certain teams, whether it's a total or a side play. So, I tip my hat off to you, and I also have to mention, of course, it's coming up here in a couple of days, but a happy early anniversary to you and your lovely wife. Went to a great dinner yesterday. Videos on Twitter looked like a blast, man.
Yeah, no, listen, great weekend. Thanks to everyone that followed along. Yeah, 14 in a row, Andrew. I'm just trying to follow in your lead. You had that massive NHL run. Ralph Michaels has one going on as well, too. And so far so good. I'm just absolutely loving this stretch run of the NHL and these teams battling for the playoffs. It was such a fun weekend. Went took a few people, including my brother and my nephew, to the Toronto-Philadelphia, not the basketball game. Dan, our producer, I talked to him about that. Not the Raptors game. I took them to the TFC game, Toronto FC. I'm a season ticket holder. It was cold as hell. I want to use a different word that starts with F, but there might be kids watching this show. I switched from beer to hot chocolates during the game. Andrew, I got to tell you a quick, funny story before I get into one other thing. We're at dinner and they're asking me, they're logged into like their betting accounts, and they're like, what do you think about tonight's game? I'm like, I think both teams are going to score, and I think Toronto is going to deal Philadelphia their first loss of the season. So you can bet Toronto, both teams to score, Toronto to win at plus 500. So everyone puts in the bet. We watch the game. Toronto wins 2-1. They're all celebrating that they won their bet. I go to look at my account and I didn't hit confirm on my bet. So they all won. I didn't. Rookie mistake by me. And then yesterday we went to a place here. Anyone who's familiar with Toronto knows there's a place called Casa Loma, a huge castle, a real castle, and they've got 4 or 5 fantastic restaurants in there. One is an Italian restaurant called Don Alphonse that was rated the #1 Italian restaurant in the world outside of Italy. So I'm like, let me try this place out. We've been trying to get reservations. My actual anniversary is the 30th, and we had reservations for the 30th, but they're now moving into a new location in downtown Toronto and are closing up this week, moving onward. So they asked us to move to the 17th. I did. We had a fantastic dinner. And then when the guy comes, Samuel, not the server, but he's like the general manager there, he comes in and greets us again for the second or third time during dinner. He checked up on us. He goes, "Your bill has been taken care of." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Lawrence called in." He knows Lawrence. Lawrence knows him. He goes, "Lawrence called in and paid for your entire tab." And I'm like, I was dumbfounded. I sent Lawrence a message later. I looked at the guy. I go, "Is it too late to order that $280 shot of tequila for my wife?" Because it's absolutely, they have a $280 shot of tequila. It's Class Azul Ultra and yellow, I think it's pronounced, but $280 for a shot of that tequila. And my wife she likes tequila. She doesn't really drink anything else. But thanks to the Prez. I know he's not watching this. He's getting ready for Wager Talk today, and I'll be on it later. But thank you to him for covering the tab. It was very generous of him and Vivian, his better half, to do. But on to NHL hockey, Andrew. Great card tonight. I'm absolutely loving it. We had some great games on the weekend, and that race in the West is it's going to come down to the wire, but I think it's starting to thin out. What do you think?
Yeah, most definitely. It's coming down to the wire. And now most teams are kind of clinched their spot. It's just a matter of where they finish and who they're going to be playing against. And speaking of teams that have clinched the playoffs, the Washington Capitals, they have finally clinched, kind of been a long wait for them to clinch the playoffs. But here they are. They kind of limped in, Carm. They're plus 170, though. And what better team to play the day after you clinch the playoffs than the Colorado Avalanche that just seem to be so dangerous every time they step out onto the ice? They are minus 200 favorites here. The puck line, still not really that great, plus 120, total at 6.5 here. We look at these positions being locked in. You've talked about the President's Trophy. You've talked about, having the winningest record. There's so much that goes into these games. And of course, guys, it is the last week of the NHL season, last full week here. So there's going to be spots where I'm going to stay away. There's going to be spots where I'm going to have very strong opinions on here. But with this one, with the Capitals and the Avalanche, I think, Carm, both teams want to work on their defense. Colorado has better defense than people might think they have, but they still have been known to, make untimely turnovers and not have the best back check when they possibly could and get caught with a rough change and things like that. The fact of the matter is, though, I'm just not sure either team could put forward that defensive effort when they go head to head tonight against each other here. Even with the 6.5 as the total, lots of talent on the ice, and we have seen the Caps scoring a lot more recently here. Of course, I hate to bring it up, but that game against the Montreal Canadiens has to be a good confidence booster. It seems like it is for everybody these days when they play Montreal. Washington putting up several goals and a lot of their guys getting going. So I like the over 6.5 here. Lots of guys that can score, but also two strong power plays and plenty of things here that point me in the direction of expecting goals in this game tonight. What about you?
Yeah, we talk about the President's Trophy, and I talk about it. And for some teams, if it was the Tampa Bay Lightning battling for the President's Trophy, I would say that, quite honestly, they don't really care about it. And the way they've been playing lately, I don't think they really care about finishing out the season. They're locking themselves they're locked into a playoff spot, and they're waiting just for these playoffs to get going. But Colorado still has a somewhat difficult schedule to finish off, and they're a couple points up on Florida right now. But you look at the games that they have; they end the season playing the Blues, the Preds, and the Wild, and all of those teams are still either in a playoff battle or in a seeding battle. Minnesota and St. Louis are in a battle for that number 2 seed in that division and home ice. So before that, they've got games against the Kraken and the Jets, games that they should win. But this is another one of those games. And when we talk about like scheduling, Andrew, we talk about like the third game in 4 nights, and sometimes the 5 in 7 or 5 in 8 is a rough spot to be in. I actually think the Caps, this is their 4th in 8 games, and it's actually a bad spot in that sense, because normally it's not too bad 4 and 8 nights, but every single game has come with travel from home to Toronto, Montreal, now a East Coast to West Coast trip, and you're playing against, and it's a late in the season as well too. Now you're playing, like you said, they clinched. You're playing an Avs team that's 13-1-1 their last 15 games, and they're not playing any slouches either. Pittsburgh Penguins twice, Calgary, Edmonton, Carolina. Even the games against Winnipeg and the Kings are against teams that are still fighting for something. So they're not getting any gimmies by any stretch of the imagination. And now they get a Washington team that can score goals. And you look at it. I put Washington in the 6 and 60 segment on Friday because I thought they were going to have a very good game against Montreal, who were starting Price on Friday night. I just thought emotionally this team was probably going to be spent. And still, Washington's a much better team than Montreal. Anyways, that it would be a bad game for Montreal, and it was 8 goals scored, especially after they were embarrassed by the Leafs the night prior, allowing 7 in the 7-3 loss. With that said, I agree with you as far as seeing some goals here, but I'm going with Colorado. I think you can take them in regulation time. Here, you can probably take them on the puck line. When they win games, they don't win close games. If you look at their last 13 games, there's probably 2 or 3 spots where they won by a goal, but a lot of them are 2+ goal wins. With that said, I'll take them in regulation time here. I think you can get it at about minus 120, 125, and I'll take the puck line as well.
Awesome stuff there, Carmen. Great information about the scheduling there with the Washington Capitals, because of course they have been, waiting until they can clinch the playoffs, waiting until they can get that spot, and of course it has kind of been a busy schedule for them in Colorado. Well, Carmen, they kind of remind me of the LA Dodgers from last year. Like you said, when you bet on them, there's nothing wrong with playing, the puck line. Just like with the Dodgers last year, when they won, they covered that puck line. And I just want to bring up as well about my over that I liked here. Last couple of games here, 8-4, 7-3, 9-2. Whether that's on a winning note or on a losing note for this Washington Capitals team, their games have seen goals. And what's so dangerous about the Colorado Avalanche is that they're no strangers to games with goals. Winning 7-4 over Carolina, they make that one look like an average game. There's so much firepower on that team that a 6.5 doesn't really even seem high enough to me for a total in this game. And of course, when you bet an over, it takes 2 to tango. I think both these teams will be up to score. But I'm right there with Carm on Colorado on the puck line. I like that as well. And I think that we'll see kind of a letdown and a fatigue and travel spot here. It doesn't really work out well for the Washington Capitals. And, Carm, you've mentioned this for a couple weeks about the President's Trophy and, which teams care about it. And also, last year, if you remember, with Colorado, it almost seemed like they came out flat, even the first round, but second round of the playoffs. Some teams don't want to have that break. Some teams don't even want to rest players this week. We're going to see teams resting players, but they don't want to also lose momentum going into the playoffs. And I feel like that will be a huge narrative for us to track as well.
Yeah, you know what? And, at first, as far as that, that total, when I looked at our live lines, which is obviously a great tool on WagerTalk.com's website, you should be using that live lines feed there. You're seeing some minus 130s, some minus 135s on the 6.5. And we've talked about, and I've talked about in the past, that the next click as far as the VIG goes is, or the VIG is when you get to like minus 135 on your juice, you don't see minus 140. You start to see an uptick on the actual total from 6.5 to 7, from 6 to 6.5. And this is one that could very well go to a 7. And then you see it 7 with the under juice to about minus 115 or minus 120. So I would not be surprised to see a 7 on this board as the day goes on. So if you like it, I would probably suggest taking it. And to Andrew, to your point of teams resting players, I'll have thoughts on that in this next upcoming game.
Awesome stuff. Well, before we get into the next game, Carm, I forgot to mention something, and I think it's pretty important to mention here. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday combined in the NHL, favorites 22-0. I wanted to lead off on the show with that. I forgot to mention that. That is pretty unbelievable, especially for this time of year where you usually see quite a few upsets. Favorites went 22-0. The teams that were supposed to win ended up winning. And even if they're not in a playoff spot, teams like Buffalo even are trying to finish their season off on a strong note. So something to watch out for, teams that are just packing it in, teams that seem like they're toast, they're done. And there's a few teams like that you and I have talked about just through texting. And, we'll jump into our next game here with Calgary and Chicago. We have Calgary as minus 300 favorites here. You want the puck line? That's minus 120. Puck line the other way, plus 100 for the Hawks. Total sits at 6.5 in this one. And the scoring has been unbelievable for the Calgary Flames, but not even just that. Something I always talk about, people probably get tired of hearing me talk about it, but how many contributors there have been for the Flames recently has really impressed me the most. Johnny Gaudreau tied with Leon Draisaitl in points, not goals, but in points. A guy drafted after the 4th round, just unbelievable performances from him recently. Matthew Tkachuk playing very well. Of course, the Flames a couple days ago, they played against the Coyotes. My best bet of the day with my clients on that game was the over, Carm. And, well, when you take an over in a Coyotes game, usually you're pretty much hoping on one team to do all the scoring, and it's not the Coyotes. But with this Calgary Flames team, How much of these next couple of games here do you see being impactful for them? And do you see the Blackhawks being a team that could play upset?
Um, I don't see them playing an upset. But with regards to a couple of things that you mentioned, the books have finally, and I'm kind of surprised by this, the books have finally caught up on juicing the 1.5 for any team playing the Arizona Coyotes. I could not understand 2 Saturdays ago when I was at the Montreal Toronto game that on the Friday, I think I released Vegas as a 5% play on the puck line, and they were only minus 115 or went up to minus 130 by game time. And then it came right back with Vancouver minus 1.5 against Arizona, minus 110. When I saw that number, I thought it's got to be a mistake. And it wasn't. By game time, minus 130. What were the Calgary Flames? Calgary Flames minus 180 on the puck line against Arizona. This is an Arizona team that have lost, I think, six of their 7 games by 4+ goals. It might actually be even more than that. They're just, if there's a team tanking, and they're not a very good team right now, they've just given up on the season. But we'll cover that when we cover another Arizona game. With that said, Andrew, yeah, Calgary scoring goals. So listen, they had that mini 3-game slump, and we started to worry about this team was playing at such a high level. Were they now going to go into a prolonged slump? And they responded by winning 6 of 7 games. Those 6 wins, they've averaged 4.83 goals per game. And sure, it's elevated a bit by that win over the Coyotes, but they're scoring goals. They're winning games again. And then you look at the Chicago team. The Chicago team is what, 1 in 9 their last 10. That win came over San Jose, who have lost 10 straight games. Somebody had to win that game. Somebody did, and it was Chicago at home. But they reverted back to who they are. They lose to the Nashville Predators. The final score is 4-3, but they were really never in that game. I think the Preds pretty much had control of that game from the onset. With that said, you look at this Calgary team, and they still have the number 2 seed to lock up the Pacific, and they have 4 games this week. This is a back-to-back. So tomorrow they play against Nashville. So I think we're going to see Markstrom in the easier of the two, which is supposed to be the easier of the two, tonight against the Hawks, and then we see Dan Vladar tomorrow against Nashville. But if they can pick up 3 wins in these 4 games, they lock up the Pacific. Either that, there's a 5-point difference between them and Edmonton. Oilers have 6 games left, I believe, so a possible 12 points, 5 points to make up with 6 games left. I just don't see it happening with the schedule that Edmonton has as well too. So 3 wins locks up the Pacific for them, and then at that point you might start to see guys resting, and that's the segue into the resting. Andrew, we could see not so much resting; they're going to play, but I think they start to manage minutes. You see players, instead of 24 minutes, you see them down to like 21, 19, 18 points. Manage the minutes. Maybe give Markstrom 1 or 2 nights off. You don't want to sit him for the last 4 or 5 games of the season and then bring him into the playoffs. But I don't think he's going to get a steady diet of games between the pipes. They're probably going to go back and forth between him and Vladar. With that said, it's the Flames. Obviously, you can't take it at this price. I will just take the puck line again and take the Flames on the puck line to beat this Hawks team.
So we're kind of in a funny situation today, Carm, because I have a wager I like in this game that I think we could both potentially win here. Which, if this hits, it kind of leads towards the over in the game. So you're liking Calgary on that puck line. I'm looking towards Chicago's team total over 2.5 goals. So potentially you and I could both cash our tickets at the same time with these 2 separate wagers. And I understand completely that the Calgary Flames are playing in some games that still mean something. They're still competing for a top spot. And you had an outstanding pick with taking them during the season to finish first in their division. You talk about how Arizona has just been one of those teams that teams are feasting on. And that's exactly what Calgary did. They did not take their foot off the gas pedal. They have had a mixed bag of games recently, but they have had some games where there have been goals on both ends. And Chicago, there was a time where they were just in my book of, yeah, they're calling it in. But recently I have seen something from Patrick Kane and some of the other guys on the team that I really do kind of have faith that they'll, show up for certain big games like this, especially at home. And it's one thing I really wanted to mention was that I think that when you're looking at teams like the Blackhawks, like the Ottawa Senators, like my Montreal Canadiens, you want to look towards any type of team total or maybe underdog money line at home. You know, some people look more towards home advantage than others. I'm not a huge home ice advantage kind of guy, but this time of year I really am, Carm. So I'm going to look towards the team total over at minus 110 of 2.5 goals for the Chicago Blackhawks, and hopefully we can both cash our tickets, Carm.
Yeah, I don't, Andrew, I can't disagree with you. You know what? Something that you mentioned earlier is sort of the only thing that worries me for the first 2 or 3 days of this week is the fact that, as you said, the favorites the last 3 days have gone like unbeaten. Now, you could make a case that the Philadelphia and Buffalo game, I think Philadelphia opened up as a short favorite. The game was essentially a pick 'em by a game time, and the Sabres were plus 1.5 goals, which means that they were essentially the dogs in this game. But the fact that the favorites win 14-0, 3-0 the night before, favorites winning yesterday, you just know at some point a dog is going to come up and bite somebody in the ass. And it might not just be one, it might be a couple of them. Because how long does this go on for? At some point, you think variance kicks in, regression kicks in from the betting gods, that some dogs are going to start to win. So, with that said, it's why you can't lay huge numbers, and why I won't lay huge numbers with like a team like Calgary minus 300 on the road. I'd rather take them on the puck line, and you're probably laying minus 120-ish or so. And if they lose, your bankroll is not taking a hit like a minus 250 or a minus 300 would hit you. At some point, we're going to be talking about it this week, where who is the parlay buster? Because everyone loves their parlays, and there's going to be a team in your parlay that is minus 250 in the NHL this week that is going to bust it. I hope not, for the sake of you guys, but if you're dog bettors, this might be a good time to play one of those ones where you toss one or two of these plus 200, plus 250 teams in there, and you take a shot at multiplying your parlay by a big number. Something's going to happen. I'm not sure when it's going to happen. Andrew, I think we have,
especially
here he is. He's back.
On the Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, or towards the end of the week, when the younger players get called up or the younger players are getting more ice time, the dogs will be barking, and there's going to be massive prices on those games. And the worst part is, guys, make sure you're checking ice time. Make sure you're checking to see, how much utilization star players are getting, because that will definitely impact the game. Let's jump into our next one here, Carm. I do apologize to you and everybody else about the Wi-Fi issues here. I'm not really sure what's going on, but the Devils and the Golden Knights, our next game. Speaking of favorites, the Golden Knights minus 330. They're at home at T-Mobile, taking on the Devils here. Devils plus 265, total at 6.5 here. Carm, the Devils have dealt with injuries all season long, it feels like. It's been a rough go for them. And of course, Vegas, they need every game possible. Every single game means something to them. You talked about fading the Arizona Coyotes. I know the Devils aren't really on the level, of course, of the Coyotes, but is this one spot where you back a Vegas team at home in a big game that they should show up for, versus a Devils team that isn't really playing too well defensively?
Yeah, I think, we talk about, and again, I hate to use the must-win thing because it's not a betting tool. It's just the same as saying that the Vegas Golden Knights have zigzagged their last 6 games, and tonight is a zag to a win after losing last time out 4-0 to the Edmonton Oilers. But you look at this, and we're talking about the thinning out of in the Western Conference race, and you have the Vegas Golden Knights, who are, correct me if I'm wrong, 3 points out of a playoff spot right now, 3 points behind the Kings. The Kings have a much easier schedule, of course. You might be looking at the Preds, they're 4 points back of the Preds, and saying the Preds have a much tougher closeout to their season. But you look at it, and the Vegas Golden Knights play New Jersey tonight, Washington, San Jose, Dallas, Chicago, and then end in St. Louis. Those, especially the Dallas and St. Louis ones, might be important ones because Dallas still wants to lock up that 7 seed. They can't really go in, they won't go any higher than that. They don't want the 8 seed because I think you want to avoid the Colorado Avalanche in the first round. I think Dallas matches up with Calgary a little better, and I'll talk about that later on or during the week. And then St. Louis could be locked into a spot, and that game might be a meaningless one for them. But you look at Nashville, Calgary twice, Tampa Bay, Minnesota, Colorado before ending with Zona. If the Knights win 4 of their next 6 games, they're going to land on 95 points, which means Nashville on 91 will need at least 4 points to make it into the playoffs, because I think we look at regulation time wins and then head to head, and that's a tough schedule for them. If Vegas obviously reels off 5 of 6, then it makes it that much tougher for Nashville because, like I said, 2 against Calgary, Tampa, Minnesota, Colorado. The Zona one at the end of the season, well, let's give them the win in that one, and they've got to win 2 out of 5 against these other teams, and that's a tough stretch, Andrew. With that said, getting back to Vegas, it should be Logan Thompson in net tonight. He's been good. He hasn't been great, but I think they're looking at him as their go-to guy. He's sort of moving into like next season as well. I think the price is extremely high, and again, we talk about when is a dog going to jump up and bite you in the ass. Hopefully, it's not tonight. I'll likely go with. I'm on puck lines right now because there's no way of playing a 330. Even a regulation line on Vegas tonight is probably in the 200s, probably a minus 200, 220, somewhere around there. I'm not sure if you have the number, Andrew, but with that said, I'll likely go with Vegas on the puck line, minus 1.5. The only thing about that is that you look at the Devils, and they're at the very least competing in their games. You know what I mean? They lose a game to the Seattle Kraken in a shootout, I think OT or a shootout. They competed in Colorado, losing only 3-1 to the Avs. So they're at least competing. They had wins before that against Dallas and Arizona. Arizona is really not a big one, but the Dallas one was a good one. They caught a flat Dallas team and beat them in Dallas. So with that said, this likely does not make my card, but if it does, I'm going to take the puck line again to minimize the amount of vig that I'm playing in a game. I think we have lost Andrew again, so I'm going to keep talking while we wait for Andrew to come back on, refresh his screen. I'm gonna mention again, when we're looking at these, when you guys are looking at the West and the playoffs, you see the LA Kings, and the LA Kings. If you watch the LA Kings game on the weekend, Andrew is back. The LA Kings game on the weekend. I talked about how the Kings have one of the easiest schedules to close out, and I think it's the 3rd easiest schedule to close out. Nashville has, I think, the 2nd most difficult schedule to close out a season. But if you watch the LA Kings game, there is not a more uncomfortable bet to have than I did, even though it won, on the Kings in regulation time against Columbus. They're essentially playing three defensemen in this game for the last 25 minutes of that game. It was one of the worst things to watch in a 2-1 game because Columbus was literally all over them. This is a scared Los Angeles Kings team, and now they're going to play Anaheim Ducks. I think 2 of their next 3 games against the Ducks. Would love nothing better to knock off the Kings, and that might be something you want to look for later this week because you're going to get a good price on the Anaheim Ducks. Andrew, are you back?
Yes, I'm back, and well, you tell me, Carm. Am I back?
You are back. Right? Not only are you back, Andrew, not only are you back, but you have a 5% play up today, not in hockey, but you have a 5% play up, and I believe it's MLB. And since October, you've hit 75% of your 5% plays, which is an absolute unreal stat, but also number 1 in the last year, 365 days, with 5% releases at WagerTalk. So kudos to you, my friend. I had to mention that.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's hard to compete with your 14-0 NHL run right now, but yeah, I'm trying to get MLB going. I'm focused on hockey, of course, but MLB, of course, is around. And big play tonight. So grab that, guys. Just $9, of course, at WagerTalk. One last game to go break down here, guys. Dallas and Vancouver. Carm, this Vancouver team just keeps on playing with my emotions. They're minus 105 tonight. Dallas minus 115. Total 5.5 here. And how many times have I said to you, I've given up on that future bet I had, and you keep on telling me, don't give up, don't give up. And one thing that Vancouver is doing, they're not giving up either. One thing that you mentioned, and again, my apologies about today with the connections, but I heard you talking about the teams that are playing it safe. The Dallas Stars, certainly one of them. Talk about the LA Kings doing the exact same thing here. How do you feel about an under 5.5 in this game here with Dallas and Vancouver? Two teams, still playing it out. Of course, obviously Dallas in a better position, but two talented goaltenders and teams that are playing a lot better defensively recently. And I think you've talked about it, what this week really means for certain teams and how we're starting to see things change. Teddy talked about it on Wager Talk today about the NBA playoffs, to expect those to be lower scoring immediately. I say expect this week to be lower scoring when you have teams like these playing each other. Are we on the same page here, Carm?
Yeah, I think we are. When you look at when this number first popped up at one of my books, it came out as a 6, and I jumped on the under in the game. Now, whether it ends up winning or not on 6, I knew that this number would eventually settle in at 5.5, and it has. So I was pretty happy about at least grabbing the 6, and that half goal could get me a push at worst. I just don't see a lot of goals in this game. You look at the last game, Vancouver went into Dallas. They beat them 4-1. That was it was a playoff style game. You look at the game before that, and yes, in Vancouver, the Canucks won that game 6-3. But if you look at it, there were 5 power play goals in that game, 1 empty netter, a ton of penalties, and only 3 goals scored in 5-on-5 situations. And I don't expect a penalty-filled game tonight because this is a big game for Vancouver. They still feel, Andrew, like they have a chance of making the playoffs. I don't as much because I think even if they run the board, 14 points, yeah, they run the board 14 points, you're on 98 and you're going to make the playoffs. But do I think they're going to run the board and win all 7 games? No, I don't. I don't think they can do it given some of the teams that are on their schedule, because it still includes Minnesota, Calgary, Edmonton, and of course Dallas tonight. I actually think Dallas could put a nail in the Vancouver coffin tonight, because when you look at Dallas, they don't win games pretty, and we talked about this. They're the bend, don't break kind of team. I think, which is why I think they would match up much better against the Calgary Flames in the first round of the playoffs, because this is a team that has won so many one-goal games this season, and can suffocate you and play some very good defense. That is the worst team for the Calgary Flames to play in the first round of the playoffs, because they literally will keep it a low-scoring game. They capitalize on their opportunities, and you win one in Calgary. You win one in Calgary to start the playoff series, and you could very well put that Flames team into a mini slump. So I'm mincing my words a little bit here, but that's a bad matchup, I think. So Dallas still, they're not going to take this game lightly. They want to finish in that number 7 seed, let these other guys battle it out for that last spot, and who plays the Colorado Avalanche in the first round. I like Dallas tonight. I think you're laying a short price on this one here. I think they're laying minus 110, minus 115. They're playing Dallas Stars kind of hockey. You know what I mean? That 2-1 win over San Jose. Everyone expects them to win by multiple goals against a Sharks team that isn't winning games, but they did what they had to do. They won another 1-goal game. The game before that against the Dallas Stars, got the game to overtime, picked up a point, but they lose in OT. Tampa Bay, the game before that, 1-0 playoff type game. So with that said, a low-scoring game. I like the game to go under, and I think Dallas puts another nail into the Vancouver coffin tonight.
All right. Carm says that, hey, Vancouver's hopes are done after tonight. And I can't argue with it, because you look at how every single game recently has been almost a playoff game for the Vancouver Canucks. every single contest they've been a part of recently. You can see it in the effort. You can see it with the way the coaches are talking to the players on the bench. It's had that feel like it's just win or go home mentality. And that has to feel suffocating. It has to feel tiresome. And the Dallas Stars have an opportunity to do that tonight, put that nail in the coffin. And they've been playing some very strong hockey, low scoring hockey, the kind of hockey I talked about last week, Carm, that a lot of people don't love to watch. But when it comes down to playoff times, teams do very well with that style of hockey. So I'm right there. I agree with Carm on the Dallas Stars. We both like the under, expecting them to win in low scoring fashion. Look, I'm not saying we won't get a good effort out of Vancouver tonight, but the Stars are doing what they have to do to pull out victories. And Carm, hey, it wouldn't be a last week type of puck time show if I didn't mention maybe a little sprinkle here, guys, in the draw in this game. Maybe a 2-2 going into overtime type game here. Get it to plus 300, plus 355 at some shops here on the draw. Will this game go to overtime? As we know, every point matters. And these teams are going to be very, very careful tonight in this game. So that does it for our 4 games. Of course, a best bet coming up. But I do have a buy and sell segment for you guys. One team we're buying on and one team we are selling. All right, guys, we are back with the buy and sell segment. It's been lots of fun doing this. We'll have a couple different segments, of course, going on during the playoffs, but this is the last week of this segment. Let's jump into our buy team that we are going to discuss here. We're going to talk about the St. Louis Blues. Guys, you know, it's not just about making the playoffs. It's about figuring out which position in the playoffs you're going to be in. The St. Louis Blues are fighting neck and neck for this certain position, not the top spot, but that second spot to figure out who they're going to play. They certainly have something to play for. They will take these games seriously this week. Number 2, 3 winnable games approaching for them. They have the Bruins, the Sharks, and the Coyotes on deck. I believe they can sweep those games, at the very least, go 2-1 in those spots. And I know it's the Sharks, it's the Coyotes. You won't get great prices. As I talked about, as Carm talked about, don't be shy taking those puck lines against the Sharks and the Coyotes. They've been very successful, and the books are just starting now to catch up with those prices. And number 3, it has just been goals galore for this St. Louis Blues team. They're catching fire at the right time. 30 goals for the St. Louis Blues in their last 5 games. They are scoring. They're doing it in impressive fashion. Their power play continues to impress, and they're looking like a playoff team that might be worth a sprinkle for a Western Conference future at the odds we are currently getting with them. This next one might shock you guys here. My sell team, we are rocking with the Nashville Predators here. Look at the schedule they have. They have limped into the postseason. They aren't playing horrible hockey, but you know, they're kind of just above that rat race for the playoffs. You know, they aren't going to miss the playoffs, but they aren't really standing out by any means. And they're a team that I think is overpriced and overvalued in a lot of their games. I also recommend taking a lot of unders this week with the Nashville Predators, expecting them to kind of shore things up defensively and work on things in that part of their game to get ready for the playoffs. And it's a heavy schedule coming up for these guys. I mean, we have Tampa Bay, Calgary, Minnesota, not easy matchups, even if they have 1 or 2 players sitting, which I don't expect that to happen early in the week. It's a tough schedule here, guys, for the Nashville Predators. Oh, yeah, and to top it all off, they have struggled against top-tier teams. Take a look at their wins over the last 5 to 10 games, guys. It's been against weaker opponents. I mentioned Tampa, Minnesota, Calgary, teams that can score goals. I believe that will be tough for the Nashville Predators to show up and compete in those contests. We're selling a playoff team this week, guys. I am selling the Nashville Predators. There you have it for this week's buy and sell segment. Buying on the Blues, selling the Nashville Predators. Lots of great situations, lots of great scheduling spots. Hopefully, we can make some money with this week with these 2 teams. Carm, any thoughts there on those buy and sell?
Yeah, no, I like it. I will say you're currently selling a playoff team who may not be a playoff team when the dust settles. But they are in at least in a decent spot right now. They play tomorrow against Calgary, who will be on the second of a back-to-back, and likely with their backup goalie. We'll see what goalies are actually confirmed as far as tonight and tomorrow's. Tonight's will give you an indication of who tomorrow's goalie will be. And then they've got the rest of the week off before they play Tampa Bay in Tampa, and then play, I think, at home against Minnesota on Sunday. So 2 back-to-back games on the weekends, which are tough ones, but they'll have 3 days off after this Calgary game for them. So we'll see a very tough schedule for Nashville up ahead. So we'll see how the dust settles. By the time I think Monday, Tuesday rolls around next week on Puck Time, we can probably start looking at doing some playoff previews, because I think the picture in the West will be a lot clearer, Andrew, as far as playoff positioning goes.
Yeah, look forward to next week. I mean, I've been excited for the playoffs for a couple months now, but I really look forward to just getting these matchups figured out, getting our research done, getting our thoughts gathered, and having these shows to break down our thoughts on the matchups. And it's going to be very tight in both the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference. Carm, I have seen on Twitter, on WagerTalk.com, you have a play night in the NHL for your clients and available. Every single play, guys, $9 today, $9 Monday. Every single Monday, you can go to WagerTalk.com, get a play for $9. And the best part is that play does not have to be today on Monday. That play could be for any day of the week, but for today, it's listed as only dollars. Carm, 14 straight NHL winners. What's going on, and what's your best bet for the show?
Yeah, it's been a good run. Hopefully, you can keep it going. Keep our clients happy. I will say before I get into the best bet segment, I do have a promo up where you can get the rest of the NHL season and all of the playoffs. While that's normally priced at $219, if you use the coupon code CARM50, that'll knock $50 off of that. So that'll drop it down to $169. Get the last 2 weeks of the regular season and all of the playoffs right through to the Stanley Cup Finals for $169. So that's not a bad deal at all. CARM50 at checkout on that package. If you click on my page and the hockey drop-down menu, you'll see the NHL playoff package there for $219, and you can use that code at checkout. As far as the show best bet, guys, I'm going to go back to that Vegas Golden Knights game. Again, I hate to use the phrase a must win, but they know what's in front of them. They're not taking any teams lightly, especially a team that comes in sort of freewheeling like the New Jersey Devils. But obviously, some of the injuries on that Devils team have obviously weakened an already weak squad. And I just think, Vegas, for their last 6 wins at home, have been multi-goal wins. They're beating up on the teams they're supposed to beat up on. Beating the Coyotes 6-1, they beat the Preds 6-1, the Kings 5-1, even the Florida Panthers 5-3. We were at that game, Andrew. They're winning games at home. Eventually, they're going to have to win some big games on the road, but let's win this one at home. Let's lay the goal and a half, the -125 or -130, and we're gonna try and start the week off with a best bet winner.
Let's do it. Let's get some best bet winners. For myself personally, it wasn't a great week last week on the show with the Puck Time best bets. I really try and get you guys a winner with those categories every single day. I'm going to try and get back in the winning category. Carm with Vegas, -1.5 at a great -125 price there, in an absolute mismatch of a game. I love that play. For me, guys, once again, I have that 5% play up in the MLB. Number 1 with 5% plays last 365 days, hitting 75% of them since October. 7-3 last 10 MLB 5%, and 23-12 run in baseball dating back to last season. Grab that for just $9 over at WagerTalk. And my best bet is going to be the Ottawa Senators, Seattle Kraken over the total of 6 here, guys. When I take a look at the Seattle Kraken, we talk about this being their inaugural season. Carm, they weren't really impressive. They had a tough start. They were injured a little bit. Their traveling wasn't very good. They didn't play well on the road. This is a team I expect to close out the season on a strong note. Offensively, they're off a win right now. Obviously, we have 2 bottom-tier teams playing each other. The problem is, no matter who's been in net, Seattle averages 3.5 goals against per game. And as much as Ottawa's played better defensively, I don't really trust them either. But I do trust their young guys to play out this full season, like I've mentioned. They don't care it's the last week of the season. They want to keep playing. Guys like Batherson that are back from an injury, Brady Tkachuk, there's Timmy Stützle, so many guys that want to make a name for themselves. And these are the types of games you can actually do it. So I believe both teams get up for this one. I'm on over 6, Seattle and Ottawa for tonight. Carmine, again, with Vegas, -1.5. And that will do it for Monday's episode of Puck Time. I hope you guys all had an amazing weekend. Of course, as you can probably tell, I'm still on the road traveling. I'll be back tomorrow on my usual setup. A recap for today. Again, Carm with Vegas Puck Line. I have Ottawa, Seattle over 6. And you can find all of our plays at WagerTalk.com. Speaking of WagerTalk today coming up at 12 o'clock Eastern Time. Plenty of great shows as well. First Pitch is back in action. We have the NBA Tip-Off Show and much, much more. Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Each and every Monday is $9 Monday at both WagerTalk.com and SportsMemo.com, when all daily picks packages are priced at only $9, including 5% best bets, normally priced at $35. As an added bonus, any picks packages loaded early for Overnight Tuesday or action during the week will also be priced at $9 until midnight on Monday. So make sure to take advantage of getting these $25 and $35 picks for only $9 before the clock strikes 12 and they return to regular price.